But yeah, I was issued with my own letter opener.
Oh,
There was about 20 of us who were, and I was
sorry. 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 You do the it's that thing came up on me hard. I'm
Jesus
sorry.
Christ. They're here. Fucking poltergeist. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of That's Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. Well, it's just a simple fact. When I want something and I don't want to pay for it, I walk right through the door. Yes, I walk right through the door. More on that later. But first, we've got a song to listen to. And because it's Friday, yes, it is, it's that time of week when we listen to a song suggested by one of our wonderful viewers. And this case, it is a truly great song, which I would have suggested anyway. So it means I don't use up one of my goes. And in this case, the viewer in question is Steady Ed. Steady Ed, you get the picture. They dropped a comment on an episode, Gang of Four. Natural's not in it. And they suggested a song by Gang of Four, Anthrax. So yeah, I do know this song. I would have recommended this song to young Andrew anyway. So obviously Andy's going to go off and listen to it.
Yeah,
More Gang of Four.
exactly. That's kind of where I was at. If it's more Gang of Four, I'm game. I'll give it a go. I've always been interested in their sound. Greg was the first to introduce me to Gang of Four, I believe, and then we did some stuff here on the channel as well. So I think this is our third
Yes.
dalliance into the Gang of Four world. So yeah, I'm jonesing to hear what they have on offer. The name Anthrax is already, quite a provocative name. So I will be interested to hear what this is all about. So let me go off, give this thing a go. I'll come back, let Steady Ed, you, and the rest of the gang know my thoughts. Lots of feedback here. More feedback. Okay. Kind of stuttery rhythm section. Thank God.
Love cross up quite a lot of the stuff you sing about because most groups, most of their songs about falling in love or how happy they are to be in love. You occasionally wonder why those groups do sing about it all the time. It's because these groups think there's something very
That's interesting. You got these two vocal tracks happening simultaneously, both saying very different things until they hit that ever profound line like piss down the drain. That's when they come together and coalesce behind sentiments so rich as that. That's pretty hilarious. Oh my god, we're already 2:21 into this. We're over halfway through the song. Most of it's been feedback. Yes, a gratuitous amount of feedback at that. But interesting nonetheless. I really do like this oddly kind of stuttering but jaunty rhythm section kind of propelling this whole thing. And then this interesting dual vocal track situation where the sing-songy one is much more clear than the guy just like spoken word beneath it. I'm not catching really anything he says unless it's like piss down a drain that's said in tandem with the other track. Then I can hear it. But yeah, this is interesting stuff so far.
question about it. Either that or
And there's no way for me to get up. Love will get you like
you know,
a case of
versus the song
Anthrax.
that's been inspired and nothing
And
inspires
that's
quite
something
like
I
that.
go on a catch. Want
These
to
groups,
control
the
what I
singers
put
think
to my
that
mind.
they appeal to everyone by
Nothing
singing
in
about
there
love,
but
because
sunshades for the
apparently everyone
blind.
has or can
Only
love.
yesterday I said to myself,
Oh,
So have
the
you
things
believed
I'm
anyone?
doing aren't
But
good
these
for my
groups
health. And I feel like a
really
beetle on its back.
go along with what
And there's
belief
no
that love
way
is deep in
for
everyone's
me to get
personality.
up.
I
Love will
don't
get
think
you
we're
like
saying
a
there's
case of
anything wrong with love.
Anthrax.
We just don't think that what goes on
And
with
that's
certain
something
people
I
can be
don't
shrouded
wanna
in
catch.
mystery.
who does? Oh, there's our old friend. So much tension in this. Oh my god. I heard some guitar notes in there.
Love will get you like a case of Anthrax. And that's something I don't wanna catch. Love will get you like a case of Anthrax. And that's something I don't wanna catch.
Me neither. Yeah, I like that drum beat a lot. And it does have this like stuttering quality to it that the bass had too when they were working in tandem. This song has got a lot of quirks to it. And I like it for those quirks rather than in spite of them, which is saying something. I mean, I would be lying if I said that feedback didn't wear a little thin as we got over the minute 30 mark without having really heard anything else or without there being this sort of hyperfixation on anything else in the track. It was really focused on that guitar feedback. Then it started to become ironic to me that it ever appeared at all because so much of the song from that point on, not so much, all of the song from that point on was really just focused on rhythm section and dual vocals. Then, as you saw my reaction, like, oh, hello feedback, my old friend. Like it came back out of left field to rejoin the fray. And it was just as in my head I was realizing, for all that bloviating the guitar did early on, I haven't heard a peep from it since. And then of course, I essentially jinxed it in my head there. Interesting subject matter. I've heard Gang of Four take on love in different ways in previous songs. I don't know if any of them were as black and white as this one. This is basically just like a warning for folks, love hurts. Or it can be painful or detrimental or whatever you want to say. But that's the gist, right? There isn't all this added nuance about sort of the social construct of love and what it means and how it can coexist in a world of consumers or capitalists, like we've heard in previous tracks, or the weird dynamic in certain relationships, and the love dynamic and how it can exist in those This is just love can hurt you. Be careful, it will. Don't catch a case of the anthrax, which is what it's like. But it's fun and quirky and a little different with its approach. I mean, there's nothing complex about it, but it's different in how it's presented than a lot of rock songs or post-punk songs or whatever you want to label. Whatever label you want to discuss, this is a little bit different. I mean, outside of like avant-garde or something like that. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I'd be interested to learn a bit more. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the other stuff we've heard from them on this channel is also from this album. I think Entertainment definitely rings a bell. Anyway, I know somebody who can clear all of that up for me and provide even further context, some of which I didn't even ask about or see coming. And that man is John. So let's get back to him.
Frank Worthington, he's back. So, you've had to listen to Anthrax by a gang of four, Leeds finest. What do you reckon?
This was this was an interesting number filled with quirks and some idiosyncrasies that kind of stood out to me, and I made note of. So let's just dive right in. The song begins with this growing feedback that becomes louder as the seconds pass, and eventually, through warbly and fuzzy mire that they've built here of this shifting feedback, emerges notes on the electric guitar. One might even say melodic. Holy shit. But man, fleeting. As if it takes its cue from the feedback and the momentary blast of discernible notes on the guitar, the drums then emerge in the form of this rather upbeat tempo around the 130 mark. Shortly thereafter, the bass comes in, thudding in to join the fray, all while the guitar feedback darts across the soundscape, still with this sort of tumultuous sound. Like there's never any clear, or just in the moments that you think it's about to find clear footing, it either disappears or it just devolves back into that wild, frantic kind of, amelodic guitar sound. You can tell that he's keeping it alive by moving his fingers a little bit here and there as the pitch shifts a little bit on the feedback. But it's definitely feedback nonetheless. It cuts out right at the 2-minute mark, and honestly, at this point, it was like, thank God, because I needed a break. I needed a little break from the guitar feedback that was going on for that long. And it leaves this jaunty yet almost stuttering rhythm section to progress the song forward. And just a few seconds later, these double vocal tracks are deployed simultaneously. And one of the vocal tracks, clearly a more sing-songy delivery, while the other is presented in a much more direct spoken word style just beneath that. And I must admit that given the dynamics that I just outlined, it was a lot easier for me to focus on the sing-songy bit than it was the spoken word bit. And I had to kind of pick my poison, and there's no way I was going to get through the rhythm section, the singing bit, to focus on what this guy was just kind of saying underneath the lyrics. So I focused more on the sing-songy portion. He talks about waking up in the morning, desperation AM, followed by the lines, what I've been saying, won't say them again, I think. He claims that his head is not empty and it's full of it with his brain, that's good. I mean, if it's not going to be empty, you want it to be filled with one thing, and that is your brain. And then something about piss down the drain and eureka. This is where I catch a bit of the spoken word delivery, because it said simultaneously. There are these bits throughout the whole song where they land on the same line. I know it's not through sheer coincidence, it's through sheer construct. But the way that they've built this to land on these like sort of punctuating phrases is interesting, and this was definitely the first iteration of that throughout the song. That moment was fleeting as the two voices go back to delivering these different narratives at the same time. And again, the focus lands on the one vocal track with more clarity, obviously the more singing one. He sings, he feels like a beetle on his back, and I don't think he's referring to John, Paul, George, or Ringo. He sings that there is no way to get up. And he goes on to warn that love will get you like a case of anthrax, which is actually a very humorous way to describe the perils of love and coming down with this idea of like I caught a bit of the anthrax just made me laugh because you've never heard it spoken about so nonchalantly. And that's sort of how it seemed he was describing it, just a case of the anthraxes. So yeah, very funny, very casual. What I think what he's trying to convey here is, and I don't have to think too hard on this, is that it would be awful to like love can hurt you in the way that anthrax can hurt you, and both can be very detrimental. So it's like a warning to the listener about the perils of love or the perils that oftentimes can come with love. The two gents deliver another stanza of lyrics simultaneously after this bit, and I find myself at this point pulled from the vocals, and now my focus is again on this energetic and stuttering kind of rhythm section propelling the song forward. And I can't help but find humor and irony at this point of the song. A song that started almost exclusively driven by guitar and the greatest of all suggestions of electric guitar, which is electric guitar feedback, to essentially devolve into the like really reach the meat of the song and be void of any kind of electric guitar work that I could pick up on at all. So I just thought that was funny and hilarious, that the song that screamed you're about to get your face melted by, some serious guitar work. We haven't heard hide nor hair of the electric guitar. And then, of course, as soon as I recognize this and make this observation, the guitar feedback rears its distorted head once again at the 301 mark, just after another chorus. So that also made me laugh. This idea of, playing with your presumptions, and then circumventing those to the point where you now recognize that that's happened, only to rope you back in again with the guitar. So they're being playful with this, I think, and it's interesting. The guitar continues to send warbly distorted bits through the soundscape, riddled with tension, like some volatile explosive about to completely kick off, but never quite fully realizes itself. And instead of it like bursting with guitar fruition, it shifts back into another chorus. This time, however, with both singers delivering the line simultaneously, and that's kind of a welcome departure. Not that I didn't like the other part, but I thought, oh, what an interesting way to kind of like bring them together at the end. So after the vocals wrap up, the drums are all that's left in their wake as the song shuffles to an end on that really simple but infectious beat. Yeah, I enjoyed the quirky nature of this song. That was in a lot of ways pretty bare-boned in its packaging. There weren't a great deal of moving parts to this one. I mean, I guess you could say that the idea of the dual vocalists was really where things got complex, but only from a discernibility standpoint. It wasn't like, what is that instrument, or what are they toying with? What's this tuning? It was just, two voices competing for oxygen and my attention. Another interesting song by these guys that tackles the theme that we've heard touched on by them before, love, which is interesting because when I was first introduced to this band, I thought, man, this is going to be like this is going to be like the Rage Against the Machine of early post-punk or something like that. I thought that that's how political they were going to be. And pin in that, they are to an extent, even when talking about love. But here we are now with our third song in a row, I think all of which have dealt with love in some capacity. But this time it seems more direct in that love can hurt you, kind of full stop. Whereas the previous songs that touched on love had more meat on the bones, like this idea of like love is a social construct and love being unnatural because it relies, this idea of love being unnatural because it relies heavily on capitalism or consumerism to thrive, which is unnatural. So therefore, their concept of love or society's construct of love is in itself unnatural. Um, this didn't have any of that nuance to it. This is just like, hey man, my heart got broken. Here's a warning sign for all you folks out there who maybe may fall into that same trap. That's one listen. My presumption of what it's about. You could tell me that I'm way off and that there's so much more, but this is how I sort of ingested it. And I thought that was kind of interesting, given the kind of nuance that their lyrics had in the past. Now, granted, I missed half the goddamn lyrics to the song because I don't know what the spoken word guy was saying. So maybe all the nuance was wrapped up in what he was saying. So forgive me if I know I missed it. I just don't know what it is that I missed as far as content and the profundity therein and all that stuff. So you can school me on that. Nonetheless, I enjoyed its quirky nature, and I enjoyed it because of its quirky nature, rather in spite of it. Though they came close to pushing the envelope with that 2 minutes of guitar feedback, which ate up half the track. Nonetheless, I thought it was fun, interesting, again quirky, worth listening to again. That's for sure. But I know that there's this huge gaping hole in what I ingested in the song, and that it comes in the form of the second vocalist who provided the spoken word bit. So piece all this together for me, John. I'm interested.
Okay, thanks for that, Andy. Yeah, you're way off. Anyway, we'll get into it.
Excellent. Get me on.
Yeah, first listen, like we said, So yeah. As you alluded to before, we have listened to Gang of Four twice before. I created playlists with the other two, Damaged Goods and Natural's not in it. Especially, particularly the first one, I speak a lot about the formation of the band and where they're going, etc., etc. So I won't dwell on that. If you want to check that out, go and have a look. So this song, great pick by Steady Ed, is the closing track to 1979's Entertainment, their debut album. It was originally, I believe, a B-side and it was listed as Love Like Anthrax, but then it was re-recorded for the album and shortened to Anthrax, and that's what I know it as, and I stick to that. So personnel, just to recap: John King, lead vocals; the wonderful Andy Gill, electric guitar. He actually did lead vocals in the song prior to this on the album, 545, and he's co-lead vocals, so he does what you would refer to as the spoken word bit. Dave Allen, bass guitar, backing vocals, not on this song, and Hugo Burnham, drums. So yeah, some really interesting stuff on this. I won't dwell on it too much, but there's a nice article from Far Out magazine on their website, and it's from November 2024, so fairly recently written. So it kind of says a lot about what I thought about this. So I shall read this. They say every great band throughout history has had their own distinctive sound, unique to them in the context of their music. Although in the present day, there is certainly no shortage of groups attempting to sound like they hailed from the first wave of 1970s post-punk, none of them can compare to the revolutionary sounds of Gang of Four. Trailblazing outfit, Gang of Four set the standard for much of the post-punk scene, and their distinctive sound has since formed a major influence on everything from shoegaze and grunge to the recent post-punk revival, which has dominated alternative music. Each track featured on the album, the debut album, added something new to the sound and manifesto of Gang of Four, with songs like Damaged Goods and Glass having particularly lasting effect. However, it was the closing song, Anthrax, that cemented the band's place in the history of alternative rock. Originally titled Love Like Anthrax, the song first appeared in the group's debut single Damaged Goods in '78. The following year, however, both Anthrax and Damaged Goods were both re-recorded for Entertainment, polishing them up a little. The track proved a pivotal moment in the history of the Leeds post-punk band, largely a result of its innovative composition and inclusion of feedback noise. Although the main part of the song is fairly mellow, its opening is wonderfully chaotic. Beginning with a wall of guitar feedback and tape hiss, the sound encased on the opening of Anthrax is eerily similar to the noise that would come to define later scenes of shoegaze and grunge.
Yeah.
Listening to those opening few seconds, you can hear the lineage of groups like Mudhoney, My Bloody Valentine, and even Nirvana. Anthrax might not be the most popular or profound composition on Entertainment, but its unique composition helped break down barriers for Gang of Four as they progressed. Even within the punk scene, which sought to destroy traditional rock conventions, many songs still adhered to the standard composition style of most pop songs: verse, bridge, and chorus. Anthrax helped Gang of Four break from that tradition. Featuring a very odd structure, characterized by the spoken word section, which runs throughout the background, the song came to define the rebellious and innovative nature of the post-punk movement. All of a sudden, many artists had their eyes open to another way of constructing songs. Frontman John King once said of the track, Anthrax was a breakthrough, explaining, "We felt able to move from verse, bridge, chorus songs. We had discovered a sound." The first wave of British post-punk had a colossal impact on the development of alternative rock styles, forever altering the lineage of rock and pioneering a variety of previously unheard techniques. However, it is certainly possible that Gang of Four's Anthrax had a much bigger impact than most, particularly as a result of its blistering guitar feedback and unusual structure. They may have been kings of the Leeds DIY scene, but the influence of Gang of Four and Anthrax is felt across the world, with multiple iconic bands and music scenes endlessly indebted to its originality. So yeah, they're obviously big fans. It is, you'll remember 1979, straight 78. This was really something else compared to what was around. It's not so amazing nowadays, but yeah, it's. I think just having the balls to arse around on the guitar with feedback for a good 90 seconds is
Yeah.
quite something, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting them
Um,
on the table when that's what, especially in the ending track. Like, the only
yeah,
thing that would have been more ballsy if you started the whole album with that, because that really would have been like fat nuts on the table. What do you think about this? Uh, the one thing that I thought was interesting from the article that you read, though, was this idea of being revolutionary in not what they did with the verse, the chorus, and the bridge, but somehow defying the typical construct of rock and roll songs, and I'm using it like small r, not like the genre, just in general. And that is, for me, it did sound like it was, here's this verse, then the chorus bit was the part where he discusses love, like where the actual title comes into play, where he's talking about love being like Anthrax. Then another, and then the bridge is this odd guitar feedbacky bit, this return to feedback, um, chorus to punctuate things, end. So it didn't, like, forgive me, I'm not trying to downplay the importance of this song, or because what they did with those parts, it is and was revolutionary. But it didn't feel like they broke off like typical construct molds when they wrote this, if I'm being completely honest.
real song is the spoken word bit.
Okay,
The song bit is the artifice, which they are then commenting on. So
gotcha.
that's the real song. That's the
Okay.
one addressing popular music. They're commenting on that and what most bands do. The real song is the underneath.
Okay, thank you. That, because it's like it's two within one, and the one within the other is almost poking fun at or underscoring the. Okay, okay, I got you, got you.
So I would normally go to the lyrics here, but I'm going to read you the bit afterwards before I do the lyrics, so it'll make even more sense to you. So this is from Genius, one of the contributors, probably AI, I don't know. But they said, as the title stroke words say, this song likens love to a case of anthrax, an ode to everlasting good health. You know, as long as you don't catch love or anything. Anthrax is really just a metaphor for a case of anything that you really, really don't want to catch. Nothing significant about Anthrax in particular. But the band's little monologue makes it clear that that's not the issue, is with love, but how it's framed. Perhaps the unknowledge about it makes it something they'd rather not dabble in, like Anthrax. Regarding the inspiration for the dual vocals and the verses, singer John King told Clash, which is a website, I think, that the idea came from the work of now they called him Marxist here. I don't really go along with that. The French New Wave filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard. And in quotes, this is the first song Andy and I wrote where we felt we got to where we wanted to be. We were big fans of Godard's movies and loved the split screen and off-screen commentaries about what was going on in his great film Numero Deux. It seemed like a modern way to describe things, how stories can't always be decoded from a single point of view. And among all the conflicting narratives, a story's sense changes depending on where you sit. So just as a reference on that, number two, Numero Deux, by Jean-Luc Godard and Amélie Minivel, is a 1975 experimental film about a young family in a social housing complex in France. The film's distinct style involves presenting two images on the screen simultaneously, leading to multiple interpretations of the story and comments on the filmmaking and editing process. And it's classic Godard, this experimental stuff. Yeah, I'll circle back to that in a second. So right, lyrics. I've written in brackets here, feedback shenanigans. All right, so John King, the singer, is singing. Woke up this morning, desperation AM. What I've been saying, won't say them again. My head's not empty, it's full with my brain. The thoughts I'm thinking, like piss down the drain. Andy Gill at the same time is saying love crops up quite a lot as something to sing about because most groups make most of their songs about falling in love, or how happy they are to be in love. You occasionally wonder why these groups do sing about this all the time. Piss down a drain.
Okay,
And then back to
already making more sense. The first line, I started to get the idea of what you explained going into this now. Okay.
And I feel like a beetle on its back, and there's no way for me to get up. Love will get you like a case of anthrax, and that's something I don't want to catch. At the same time, Andy Gill is saying, it's because these groups think there's something very special about it. Either that, or else it's because everybody else sings about it, and always has. To burst into song, you have to be inspired, and nothing inspires quite like love. And then back to the same time, John King. Ought to control what I do to my mind. Nothing in there but sunshades for the blind. Only yesterday I said to myself, the things I'm doing are not good for my health. At the same time, Andy Gill, these groups and singers think that they appeal to everyone by singing about love because apparently everybody has or can love. I said to myself, or so they would have you believe anyway, but these groups, and I feel like a beat on my back, and these things at the same time, like a beat on my back, but there's no way for me to get up. Love will get you like a case of anthrax. That's something I don't want to catch. And the Gill continues to go along with what the belief that love is deep in everybody's personality. I don't think we're saying there's anything wrong with love. We just don't think that what goes on between two people should be shrouded in mystery. And then the both of them after love will get you like a case of anthrax, and that's something I don't want to catch. Love will get you like a case of anthrax, and that's something I don't want to catch. So yeah, it's really interesting approach there.
Yeah.
It's kind of half conversational. It's kind of dripping in sarcasm as well.
That's what I'm picking up
It's just
on.
really interesting. And like you said before about their songs, which maybe focus on the romantic side of things, it's always how it fits within society as well, and within consumerism, as in selling of songs, love themes, etc., and how you consume things within society. That's where their political bent comes in. And with you might start thinking about it without even realizing you're thinking about it, in a political sense. So it's really, really clever. Yeah, I really love this song. Okay, so just a couple more points on Anthrax. I don't know how familiar you are with Anthrax itself, Andy. There's a lovely little island just off the coast of Scotland, which is called Anthrax Island.
Oh,
yeah, and
great.
do not book that. The Airbnb there is always available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine. It was between Anthrax Island and the Isle of Snakes, and I was kind of torn
Yes.
where would be the best for my honeymoon. So decision
And
made. Snakes.
they reference it in Silence of the Lambs as well, because they offer Hannibal Lecter a little island of his own where he can go onto the beach for half an hour once a month, and it turns out to be Anthrax Island, I think he refers to it as, or the American equivalent of.
Right.
Funny. My only brush with Anthrax, well, two brushes. One would be a lovely 12-inch single called Bring the Noise,
Yeah.
which also featured Public Enemy in
Yeah.
1991. That's awesome. And the other one being there was a spate for a short while in the early noughties where certain publications, newspapers in particular, were sent envelopes of stuff which seemed to be Anthrax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and at the time, I worked at a newspaper called the Peterborough Evening Telegraph. And as such, I can't believe I found this. I was looking for this earlier on. But yeah, I was issued with my own letter opener.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, about 20 of us were issued these. I never used it. But yeah, I don't know if you can just see it's still got the
yeah.
telegram there. But yeah, this is what you're supposed to use to open a letter.
That'll
Uh,
save you from Anthrax, if
I
anything.
I
Yeah.
have no idea what that's going to do to stop you in, big cloud of talcum
Yeah.
powder envelops you, and
Exactly.
either you smell of lavender or you're dead.
Yeah.
Um,
You'd be like, this is great and all, but can I get the branded gas mask instead of the envelope opener? That would be great.
there you go. So yeah, I can't believe I found that. I'm really chuffed. It's a little sort of memento from history when
Yeah, that's
when
cool.
times were simpler. When
Well,
how people
you
wanted
say
to
that
try to kill you.
yeah, you think you're saying that tongue in cheek, and then you fast forward to now, and you're like, oh, the halcyon days, when it was the
Yeah,
occasional parcel that might
yeah.
get you killed.
Yeah, I just to circle back on what I was Jean-Luc Godard. I'm not surprised that he would have been someone that Gang of Four picked up on.
Yeah,
Um, Really great filmmaker already. And I have to say though, I well early in my life I worshipped um, Alfred Hitchcock. I still think he's probably the greatest, certainly greatest British director.
Mhm.
Um, He'd be up in the top three, along with Kurosawa and a couple others. But anyway, um, but from that, Francois Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard, Le Chaos du Cinéma, and then it was the book, the interview with Hitchcock as well. So I got an affection away from that. I always preferred Truffaut's work. Actually, it's just slightly more accessible and
Mm.
enjoyable. Godard's was very worthy and interesting, and yeah, but it's not exactly Die Hard. I mean, if you want to switch off. But I mean, I do enjoy it at times when I'm ready for it. So yeah, just as I mentioned that. But this is a great shout from
Yeah.
Studied Ed. Whatever. Sorry, apologies for getting your name wrong. It's probably just called Bert or something, very easy. But yeah, this is a great recommendation and one that I would have probably given to Andy at some point. Is one of my favorites off the album. Having said that, I've probably got 10 favorites on that album. So, it's
I was
not.
gonna say we've done a lot from Entertainment. I think have all three of these tracks now been from the same album? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. I got another two lined up actually.
Yeah,
But
well, it's not broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean? It underscores
yeah,
how great that album is if we keep doing good
yeah,
stuff with it.
definitely.
So,
But thanks for recommending it, Andy. Thanks for listening to this. I shall
yeah,
wrap things
thank
up.
you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. Please hit the like button if you like this and drop some comments about Anthrax, the song, or the group, or the bacterial infection that kills, whichever one you prefer. Perhaps you have a hatred of bunnies. I don't
Pick
know.
your
That's
poison.
mixed, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. I think this is a great, great song. But yeah, please tell us what you think. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Hop on board. Um, the poisonous gases are fine. And if you've got a suggestion for us, please drop it in any of our episodes. Just drop a comment in saying what you'd like to listen to, provided that neither of us have heard of it, or one of us has heard of it, one of us hasn't. If we both heard of it, we won't include it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Also, if it's like really niche, trying to get a link for it and it's only the record label and it gets blocked, that's going to be troublesome. But that's our headache. Don't worry about it. You just drop the suggestions and we'll add it to the list. We'll get around to it and we will discuss it, and then you'll be sorry. So, that being said, thanks so much for watching. And we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.